This is a dharma staff, 5 feet long. And before this, it was a snake, the black snake on Vulture Peak. And recently it was a snake on the ridge above Jikoji. Now, I call on all dragons and elephants of the Sangha to bring forth the Dharma. First question.
Angie, you asked the first question.
Ah. Shuso.
Hi.
Mm. From your practice, you studied many words to learn about Shunyata. Two of them are beyond words. Tell me, Shuso, what does it mean beyond words?
It's like finger pointing to the moon is not the moon. And these words are helpful, but you're so right, ultimately. We must just experience it. Do I go ahead and,
We'll pick people.
yeah, I'll have to see everybody then. Hang on a second. Gallery. Okay,
Taizan, you can put your fan down.
okay.
Shuso,
Hi.
the mind-only school, what does that mean?
It means that all things are empty.
Again, what is the mind-only school?
We try to take in all of this from the teachings of the past, Yogacara, Nagarjuna, of nothing existing. But consciousness only means there is something that exists. It is mind. All things are coming from mind, but they are completely empty.
Are all things mind?
You ask many questions. Have you not studied these things?
Shuso,
Hi.
are you just a mind?
It doesn't feel like that to me. It feels real. How does it feel to you?
Is your mind real?
For me, it's as real as it gets. And of course, there's the relative and absolute, as you know. So in an absolute sense, no, nothing exists. But relatively, which is where we live, where we must live, it's real to me.
So Shuso, you don't absolutely exist.
It seems not according to the teachings, but how would I know? Unmute yourself and
Shuso,
dragons and elephants and ask me
Shuso,
questions.
can you hear me, Shuso? Shuso. Shuso, can you hear me?
Shuso, can you hear anybody online?
Hi,
Shuso,
Nico? No?
this is Connie. Our Zen asks us to submerge ourselves in the present moment. The Metta Sutra says, do not be submerged by the things of the world. How do you reconcile the two?
I try to come up for air when I'm feeling completely sad and overwhelmed. And I know if I can just get one more gasp of air, I can go on one more present moment. And maybe that's as good as it gets.
Thank you.
Susho, I have a question.
Hi.
Hi. So my question is, how can we be loving, kind, and compassionate unconditionally?
For me, it comes back to the relative and absolute again. Absolutely, I can find it in my heart to understand, even those that I can't believe do things that are unimaginable, that there's a linkage of karma that has brought them to that place. But relatively, I find it very much of a practice to try to love that and them.
Shuso,
Hi.
if we have a passionate, deeply held belief, is that a fixed view?
Could be, but I don't think so in every case. There's no point in gaining an entire ethical way of being in this world through all these endless trials and challenges where we failed and then tried to make a determination to do better next time, to throw that all away because we thought worried it was a fixed view seems an unskillful way of being in the world.
Shuso, what do we do with our passion?
In the words of the Zen master Grace Slick, find someone to love. And, you know, I want to speak of love in more ways than this very bereft way we speak in English. Everything is love. I love my food. I love my 96 ways of expressing love in Sanskrit, from our practice, from where we come from. And today, after this Shuso ceremony, I ask each of you to find someone to love. Doesn't mean romantic love. It means reach out and find someone who needs that, who needs a tenderness. And that's where passion, I think, is wisely spent.
Shuso, I ask you to shine the light within. Look deeply and mindfully. And tell us, what is your suffering?
Shuso,
Hi.
hi. I find myself also often in a lot of pain. And when I am, I can do really stupid things. So after that, can you guide me on the practice of repentance?
Just do the best you can in every moment. That's as good as it gets.
One step in front of the other?
Or one step backwards. Our great lineage founder talked about that, taking the backward step. But I wouldn't be so hard on yourself, knowing you, my friend, the love that you share in the world.
Oh, I love you, man. Dear friend and brother, congratulations. It's incredible. Bravo.
Shuso, on top of Vulture Peak, when Buddha held up the flower and Mahakashapa smiled, what soundless song were they singing and hearing between each other?
Song of the birds. Songs of the laughing squirrel of Jikoji.
Thank you. And I love you too. Thank you for the thank you stuff comes later. Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Mine is an easy question for those who know the answer. I was once told that we don't sit Zazen, but Zazen sits us. Can you explain this to me?
Zazen sits us. We come forward. If we come forward to experience life, we miss the point. But if we allow life to express itself through us, then there's all the possibilities in all the worlds.
So,
Hi.
can you relate all the possibilities of the world to the potential of Shunyata?
You ask a question you already know the answer to. That's unfair.
No knowing. What is your answer?
My answer is the same as yours, my loving mentor. I've learned so much from you.
Thank you.
Shuso, what did you get from the practice?
Nothing.
Shuso,
Hi.
one of my life teachers, Karl Marx, said that religion is the opiate of the masses. How does one dance around this drug?
Shuso,
Hi.
does it ever happen that someone realizes enlightenment without seeking it?
The scriptures say so. The enlightened Buddhas might not even know that they've attained enlightenment. But this last week we've studied with a new term, the enlightenment beings, or the enlightened, the ones that enlighten the world. Shine a light is what I think too, in the words of Kobun, how he talked about a light in the mind. Our practice is a light in the mind, Mahesh. The light in the mind in this dark night that we can find ourselves in.
Shuso,
I
we hear you've spoken much words about emptiness, but everything has its opposite. How would you define the opposite of emptiness?
paradox.
Shuso,
Ross.
are you afraid of that stick biting you?
My teacher says I should be.
Shuso,
Hi.
you mentioned lineage a few moments ago. As a Zen practitioner, I find myself wondering, other than as a device for honoring the ancestors, what is the function of lineage? What are its pitfalls? And how does it relate to Kobin's frequently cited conception of no hierarchy?
I don't know.
Thank you.
I need to repeat the question, I'm told. Thank you so much.
Should I repeat it?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I asked what the function of lineage was, what are its pitfalls, and how does it relate to Kobin's frequently cited conception of no hierarchy?
When you go to the emergency room, you better hope there's a hierarchy.
So, what when you go to the Dokusan room?
One more time.
What about when you go to the Dokusan room?
Well, there you know that sometimes you're the teacher and sometimes you're the student. That's been my experience. You're exchanging your heart with someone in a very wholehearted and open way, in a wonderful way. And yet, it would seem to be a very unskillful and unwise thing to ignore all of the experience of 2,500 years and all of the wisdom traditions that are passed on, not to accept them all without any kind of exploration. That's the beauty of study and of sessions and of our time together when we can talk. And that's when the truth is revealed.
Shuso.
Hi.
I ask you, Shuso, what is the fullness? Where is the fullness? Who is the fullness? What is the fullness of emptiness?
What is the fullness of emptiness?
So could you repeat what Mike said? We couldn't hear.
Mike said, we just got done with a practice period on emptiness. And in it, we talked about, of course, the Kula Shunyata and the Buddha's making reference to how he dwells in voidness. And he gave step-by-step instructions of how to do so. And one of them was to be dwelling out in the forest, to ignore what's going on in the village, to ignore what's going on in the family, to ignore what's going on in the world, but just focus on forest and dwell in that voidness. And then the next step was to void in the earth and to ignore all of the things going on in the forest and just imagine dwelling and training yourself. These are all training things. So Mike's question was, how do we dwell in the fullness of emptiness? This paradox, as I understood the question. And that's a question I'm still, and maybe will be endless for me to try to uncover. Maybe I'll get a glimpse of it. We tried to get a glimpse of it in our practice period, didn't we? Those of you that were there, we tried. We had art. We had the lenses of art with Jiro. We had the lens of relationship with Choben Nensen. We had the lens of language with Rabbi Eli Cohen. We had the lens of reason with my friend Kishore from Mount Madonna Center. We had the lens of science with Cliff. We had the lens of story and nature and ritual from me. And these were all attempts to glimpse in the same way you can't look directly at the sun, but you feel its presence. You know it's there. Trying to get a glimpse of this ungraspable fullness.
What about the lens of impermanence?
Next time.
Shuso.
Mike.
So if there's no birth or death, what is your
what is
One moment, Karn. Michael.
If there's no birth or death, then what was your face before your parents were born? What is the original face?
This is a question I thought might be asked, so I've practiced an answer. I always come back to science and think of things as being just in potential, as Cliff has taught me. And so there's a potential that if you could assemble it some way would be the original face. But I'm not sure that that is a good answer for your question. And I'm trying to understand perhaps the question underneath the question that you're asking. There's no birth or death. I know that's a hard one for me, Michael, because it sure seems like there is birth and death in my experience. You know, the Buddha said, trust your experience. My experience is there is birth and death. And I have to take it on some faith or trust that in an absolute sense, or there's a way of perceiving it that I just am not able to see at the moment. And I give a lot of leeway, or I give a lot of permission to be in that space of not knowing, because I've had so many times when I didn't understand something initially, and rather than come to what they call closure and decide, I don't believe that, or I don't know, or that's not right, or I can just remain in that uncomfortable spot of not knowing, that sometimes good things can arise, and especially given practice, you know, given our opportunity for practice. So I think that's probably as close as I can give you to the answer. I know it's not sufficient.
Shuso,
Yes, Karn.
what is happiness?
Seeing your smiling face, hearing your questions, and your sincere love of the Dharma and of trying to understand. That's wonderful happiness for me.
Shuso.
Hi.
Whoops. Do chickens and cows and pigs, do they have an original face? And if so, how do I help their suffering?
Someone asked before, my good friend John, looking deeply into my heart, what is my suffering? My suffering is that we are not recognizing our connection with these beautiful creatures all around us. I appreciate you bringing that up. I'm trying to find my way in this, you know, is that a fixed view? You know, someone could say, oh, give it up. If one lets go of all of these fixed views, you can find contentment. And yet the Bodhisattva way is not about giving up. And certainly these days don't seem to call for someone to give up and accept, or just wish it was different. It does call for action in different ways, though, perhaps. Maybe my way is a small way, asking for this beautiful vegan sesshin that you cooked for so lovingly, preparing delicious meals for us, showing the way and how possible it is. And yet not excluding all the people who at this point can't see that I love, whom I love, feeling disconnected from them for that reason seems not a wise path either. So I'm lost. I'm lost.
So, tell us about joy.
Joy. Mado should tell us about joy again. She had a wonderful discussion of joy, didn't she? And how important that is. It's the wonderful counterbalance to not being submerged by the things of the world. It's the thing that gives me a hand up. And I try to look for it. And I'm trying to look for it more. I'm trying to fill my life more with that idea of it and finding that right balance between being aware of the suffering in the world and feeling that with compassion, feeling with, and yet not giving up the joy that makes that wonderful connection and makes this practice so wonderful. I love this practice. This practice gives me joy, Mahesh. It gives me joy. I love going back from a sesshin and having a renewed feeling of encouragement, more courage to face the loneliness, the suffering, the sadness, especially at this time that I feel all around me in the world, all around in my little town of Aromas and my friends and all the people around the world that I know. So I have to look hard. I have to do things like you helped me with, making a timeline 18 feet long, something large, not some little piece, 5 feet high, 18 feet long, with a winding timeline that comes back on itself, just like time seems to go forward and backwards. And you bring me a lot of joy, and you have for that. So thank you.
Shuso,
Where did that voice come from?
sorry, my network has been really bad. I have another question. Shuso, what is Did you get my question?
No, sorry.
Sorry, my network is bad. So my question is, Shuso, what is awareness? What is attention?
I think of that model that we've worked on before, that model of a circle, of a wheel, in which the spoke is your attention. That whatever that points to is the focus. We work on being able to move that around in order to gain samadhi in our lingo, the ability to bring our focus somewhere. And awareness is something within the entire context of consciousness, but it's not consciousness. Consciousness includes many, many other things, and things we're not even aware of consciously all the time. So I think our practice is one that has these elements, two elements in it that are very important. One is that ability to focus, which is awareness, to bring it to the moment, this present moment. And the other one is that broad allowing that bubbles up from the bottom without any kind of top-down necessity of following a procedure, just letting go. These two things combined make this practice that I love, Mahesh. Sound like a song, didn't it? Joel, is that your new song?
Not as far as I know. I think I'll steal it. It's a good song.
There's a lot of background noise going on.
Shuso, in this season, we have stories like the Grinch who stole Christmas and Scrooge. How would you meet somebody who's a Scrooge?
You would not believe the number of ways that we have learned this week in our Rohatsu of how to meet someone who is a Scrooge, someone who doesn't have generosity and in some ways it was a beautiful tale of, in poetic sense, this Avatamsaka Sutra had these elements of if this, then that. And, you know, when I had tea with Jarod this week, wonderful tea, he reminded us as we were sitting there to look in to the tea bowl. And when the tea bowl is empty, to think, how can I fill other people's, even if it's not a tea bowl, but how can I fill other people's lives with some kind of thing, like perhaps joy and so each moment gives an opportunity to practice. That practice off the cushion. You know, that's what I think of when I'm sitting sometimes. I think, why, as we all do, why am I doing this? And I want to be able to be skillful off the cushion. So find someone to love today.
So, give me your face.
Shuso,
Hi.
he has a question. Is his Buddha nature different than yours?
What's the sign for love? Throughout the sesshin, when we were doing our final gatha, Chosen Nenzin Pamela Brown was signing what it would be in in American Sign Language. So beautiful, and it added a whole different element to that. I love that idea of bringing that in and inviting people who might have that disability to. Oh. Beings are numberless. Okay. Okay. Thank you all so much for honoring me with your questions and with your support. I know I haven't answered the questions very well, and I haven't fulfilled my role of Shuso adequately. And I may have said things, not may have, I have said things I'm sure that are wrong or misleading. And for that, I am profoundly sorry. And it's our tradition to advise after this to wash your ears out, just like your mother taught you. And hopefully that will remove any stain of my making. Well, thank you all so much. May our intention. May our intention to every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Illusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to become it.